This has definitely been a workout for me, bro.
Hey, it's okay though. But you know what? I think when you're trying to do good and try to make the world a better place, and you're trying to leverage the skill set that God's given you, it's always going to be a challenge. I don't care what anybody says. It's always going to be a challenge, man.
But listen, I can write a book on the statement you just made. My whole life has been a challenge, so I understand what you're saying along those lines. But it's just that I've been in my sleep thinking about doing this thing, right? I get up, man, I go to my AOL, I try and bring it up. I ain't never had no problems. All of a sudden, boom, I got problems. They tell me, send me a passcode, this, that, and the other. I send it, they act like they can't get it. Try back later. And I'm saying, man, this is crazy.
Well, first and foremost, I'm just excited that we get a chance to connect. Everybody who is tuning in to the show right now, I'm just blessed and honored and excited to really have an opportunity to talk to Dr. John Carlos. And I'm going to let him really kind of, first I want to say, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Well, brother, I'm blessed. I'm alive. My wife is happy. She's beautiful. And it makes me just light up like a Christmas tree.
You know, it's so funny that our relationship has developed to the level that it's developed to. And I appreciate you taking the time really to share some insight, some wisdom, some ideas. And I really want to go back to your time when you were at the Olympics. I think that's a great place to start, because what you did at the Olympics really impacted the civil rights movement, impacted people understanding that athletics is more than just competition. And so tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about that. Give us some background.
It originally started back in San Jose State. We had issues on the campus of San Jose State relative to young black students or students of color, blacks in particular, finding living quarters when we got to San Jose. It was very difficult for black students to find living quarters. We had to go out and find a white friend that might go and set up a situation where we can get a place to live, an apartment or what have you. And then we began to look at it and realize that this is just, the dot on the paper relative to, 1 grain of sand on the beach, because it was magnified. It wasn't just in San Jose at the university. It was clear out throughout the United States.
Right.
We started looking at what we can do as young athletes to make a difference, to pull the blinds open for society to see that we have a very serious problem and we need to buckle down and try and resolve this issue. As we went on with that, it became very clear that we had much opposition. In other words, why are you rocking the boat? This is the way it is. This is the way it's been. This is the way we would like it to continue. So then right away, we became the pariahs or the villains of society, so to speak. That's the way they tried to paint us that way. But yet still, we organized ourselves. And when I say we organized ourselves, I would say we did a tremendous amount of research in the library to make sure that we covered all ends. If they came to us to ask a question, we want to be articulate enough to expound upon the questions they ask and give them a full foundation in terms of why we are, who we are, and where we anticipate going.
Absolutely.
So that research was very important. And then a second reason to research, to get a solid ground, was to make sure that we can educate those young individual athletes, our peers, so they would have a better understanding. To ask someone to sacrifice an Olympic opportunity is a tremendous chore for an individual to just say, man, I'm going to kick that to the side. But we had to have a solid foundation to let them understand why it was necessary. Yeah, we might not receive the benefits in the moment, but in the total movement, we will receive the benefits because our kids and their kids will have a better opportunity in society.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we forged on ahead, and we received the threats, don't do this, or we gonna do that, and the whole 9 yards. Well, as time went on, a lot of people started moaning and groaning. They started getting weak, when pressure was being applied to us about this particular boycott. So then we decided what we'll do, we'll take a vote to go or not to go. Well, many individuals say, man, I understand your plight. I agree with you in that sense. But man, you asked me to give up something that I've been working for all my life. You know, I promised my kids, my church, my community, everyone is relying on me to go and represent America and come home with a medal.
Right.
We try and express to them, medals are great, but you can't feed your kids medals. But a lot of individuals wouldn't just say well-rounded enough to understand that. So therefore, we decided that we had to vote. They voted against boycotting. And personally, I felt like I was going to stay home. I wasn't going to go to the games. And then creator of this universe came to my mind. He said, John, you know, you can stay home, but the question is, when you stay home, someone's going to get in your spot. Do you feel that they will represent you in the victory stand the way you would like to be represented? From that instant, I said, I'm going to the games. I went to the trials. I broke the world record. They played political games and blocked me out of running 100 meters at the Olympics. But yet and still, it didn't deter me because it wasn't about the 100 meters. It wasn't about the medal, other than the fact that I had to win a medal. It was about me getting there to make a statement that would be a universal statement. You know, it's a lot different than me standing on the corner on 125th Street in front of the Apollo making a statement, opposed to me being at the Olympic Games for the world to see the statement that was being made.
Right. Well, and I want to add to what you're saying, because, you know, your platform created the opportunity to not just make a statement, you know, in your community, but to really educate the entire world on what was happening in the United States of America. Is that fair, what I'm saying? Or
Absolutely, because, you know, the plight of Black Americans is just a microcosm as to what's happening to people of color around the world.
Yeah.
And we have a mechanism to say, well, we could stand off or we could fend off the atrocities that might come to us. But in other parts of the world, man, they didn't have a clue in terms of how to deal with the atrocities that was being applied upon them. They had to have a blueprint. We became that blueprint.
Well, and I want to say, you know, first and foremost, what you have done and what you continue to do is very powerful, because, you know, we're still, unfortunately, there's still boxes that people get put in. There's still stereotypes. There's still racism. There's still white privilege. Like, all that stuff exists, and nobody has enough guts, enough courage to talk about it, because, like you said before, we're afraid for our own self-interest. Am I talking crazy, or is my mind gone, or tell me the truth?
No, you're right on. You're right on. And one of the biggest problems we have through this race relations is the fear factor. On Blacks or minorities, we are very fearful to step up. Let me give you an example. Like, if I had you on the ground and I have my foot on your neck, should I lay there based on fear, or should I scream out as Mr. Floyd did, get off my neck?
Right.
So, you know, we have to sit back and realize that if a white person told me, he said, man, you know, I sympathize with you, I understand what they're doing to you, but yet still you tell me on the private set, but you're not willing to step up in the public vein to denounce atrocities. So then you have to ask that person, say, man, I have to figure in my mind as to whether you are part of the solution or are you part of the problem.
Wow.
Now, if you choose to sit there idle and say, I understand what they're doing to you is wrong, but you choose not to go public and say, denounce these individuals, then you're part of the problem.
Right. Well, and I want to add to what you're saying, because, you know, especially, obviously, I'm a Black man in Idaho, trying to navigate a system where you got to have people who are willing to stand next to you, right? They got to be willing to stand right next to you in a time where, you know, people are going to talk about you, hate on you, kill you, destroy your character. Like, all that stuff happens. And I agree with what you just said. We have to be willing to stand up and speak and step into the power that we have. And I know we have power.
Well, the first thing a lot of people don't realize that what we do, man, we don't do it necessarily for ourselves as much as we do it for our kids, our offsprings, to make them have a better life than the life our parents had or the life that we might have had.
Right.
To give them an opportunity to feel free and secure in this life, to go as high and as far as the Lord anticipated them to go. Someone has to stand up. You know, when I was a kid, you had this guy called Spartacus. You know, he was the hero in the movie. It wasn't about whether he was white or whether he was rich or he was poor. But the bottom line is he was affluent in terms of having courage to stand up against the ills of society.
Right.
And that invigorated me. Another character, Robin Hood on TV, impressed me very much because he had the same vein. And these individuals, why did they become characters in the industry? Merely because of that courage that they had. You know, everyone has fear, but you can't let fear succumb you. You can't let fear take over you. You have to be able to bust your way through it, because it's not about your life, it's about your offspring's life.
Man, that's so powerful what you're saying. And, you know, I have 4 beautiful children, and so I relate to everything that you're communicating. And so I want to shift gears a little bit because, you know, obviously we know what you've done. We know what happened to you at the Olympics 1968 in Mexico and everything that unfolded. But I really want to talk about some of the relationships that you had, some of the people that connected with you and that supported you. And please share your thoughts and ideas, because I think it's important for people to hear, you know, that I'm in the presence of talking to a legend. And I want to say that in humility. Like, you are an unbelievable man, and I appreciate that.
Hey man, let me just tell you, I'm your brother. That's no more, no less. I'm not a legend. I'm just an individual that's trying to do what he feels is right in life. You know, simple as that, man. I'm nobody special. You know, special people, they live eternally. And God say, yeah, okay, you're special in my eyes. You will live eternally, because once you leave here, they will still talk about you.
Right.
But most individuals, you know, you have to realize that there's 2 types of individuals. There's a man-made icon, and there's a God-given icon.
Right.
And you back and say man-made icons like John Wayne and Betty Davis and all them, as soon as they die, you very seldom hear anything about them. Those are man-made icons. But then God-given icons are like Harriet Tubman, John Brown,
Right.
understand, Paul Robeson, Marcus Garvey, you know, and we can go on Rosa Parks, down the line. For eons of time, they still talking about these individuals like they're walking the streets today. Their spirits are walking the street today because they was inflated when they were out there doing the things that they've done and raised high in society.
Yes, that's powerful. That's powerful. Okay.
Now, I don't know whether I answered your question on that, man.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You know, I love that we have this conversation, because whenever you share stuff, I just shut up and listen, because for me, I want to be a student, right? Like, you have so much insight, so much background, so many concepts and things that you were so far ahead. And so I want to see what I can take from us just having this conversation. So I'm just being quiet. That's all I'm saying. I'm just being quiet, man. So tell us a little bit about, you know, let's go back to the Olympics, if that's a possibility. Tell us what happened. Tell us everything that unfolded. Tell us, you know, who won, what happened, so that people can kind of wrap their mind around the history. So then when they look it up on Google or Insta or whatever social media, they can find out what happened, but they can hear it from you right now.
All right, let me just start by saying, you know, going to the Olympic Games, man, most of the individuals on that team were in their 20s, early to mid 20s.
Okay.
We were very excited about going to the games based on the pageantry, you know, the colors of the various countries coming in with their various colors and their robe and so forth. We was excited about the balloons and the doves that was flying out. And then when we got to the stadium, we realized that it was 2 types of energy. There was energy, actually, there was 3 types of energy. The energy of the stadium itself, the ambiance of the stadium was just like this is the Olympics, and it was big and it was beautiful.
Okay. Okay.
And then we go into the stadium and we realize that not only did the stadium have its own energy, now the spectatorship, the energy that they had, how they was raised just waiting for God's gift to society. And then we on the field and running around, jogging around, smiling, laughing, and our energy started exploding all over the place. So it was almost like it was magnetic. You know, everyone was just zeroed in at point zero, you know. And then the competition started. And when the competition started, it was about saying, well, let's go on and run through these rounds. So I think all of the U.S. athletes were going through their rounds almost like a workout more than a race.
Sure.
Going through the formalities to get through the rounds. And I remember at the quarter semi, I approached Mr. Smith and told Mr. Smith that I had a question. And I said to him, I said, man, you know, I'm disappointed in the fact that the boycott was called off, and I'd like to make a statement. What's your thoughts on that? And he said, I'm with you. And when he said that, two things came to my mind. First thing was medals never meant anything to me, and in the opposite side of that, medals meant everything to him. Why would I run for a gold medal that has no value to me and it has every value to him? So just the mere fact that he said he was with me in terms of making a statement, he could have the medal. But at the same time, I had to go through the process in my mind.
Right.
For two things. I had to go over to the training area and talk to the coach, to our coach at the university, and say, Bud, I said, man, I got a dilemma. And he said, what's that? I said, man, you know, I want to give this race to Tommy. And man, I don't want this dude to think that I'm some kind of Rudy Pooch, you know. Right. Bud said to me, he said, John, he said, you've always been your own man and you're going to do what you think is best. And that kind of solidified the way I was feeling, but I just wanted to get a co-signer, so to speak.
Sure, absolutely.
On the way back to the stadium, I stopped at the phone and I called my boys back in the States. And I told one of them, I said, look, man, tell the fellas don't make no bets. Because all my career, all my boys that I grew up with made bets throughout the time I was running. Don't make any bets because I'm undecided as to what I'm going to do in this race.
Okay.
By the time I hung the phone up and got back into the stadium, I had made up on my mind when the race go, I have to set a precedent to let them know if I want this medal, it's mine. That's why you see me blaze off the turn and you see me looking around telling Tommy to come on if you want the medal. The medal had no value to me other than the fact that, you know, I had the choice to either go for it or give it up. And then once we went into the tape, I was excited when I looked around and to see with Tommy talking to him. I had forgotten about Mr. Norman, Peter Norman, my brother from another mother. Peter Norman, best part of his race, I would say was the last 20 meters of the 200 meters. And I'd forgotten about him until we got down maybe 10 meters before the finish line. And I said to myself, oh my God, Peter Norman. And you would see me turning from all the way from my left over to my right. And Peter won. And I remember Stan Wright said to me, well, we got first and second. And I told Stan, I said, no, we got first and third. He said, no, we got first and second. I said, if they give me second, I'm going to denounce them because I know Peter won. But at the same time, prior to that, in the race, when Peter didn't be at the tape, I was disenchanted. I was upset until I looked up at the clock. I looked at the clock. I was excited for Peter Norman because he was the first white guy that I saw that ever run that fast.
Wow.
And the second thing that I was probably excited about, maybe even more, is the fact that I looked around for 60, 70 meters, jogging down the track, and I still ran 20 flat. So this is what I came to do in that sense. I ran a very respectable race and still have an opportunity to accomplish what I want to accomplish on the victory stand.
So I want to ask a couple of questions because this is, you know, it's powerful. So first and foremost, let's go back to Peter Norman. When you talk about Peter and like you said, you guys won gold, silver, and bronze. Tell me a little bit about Peter because I'm trying to wrap my mind around that relationship that you guys had.
Well, First of all, Peter's from Australia. People don't realize that Australia, their mindset relative to race relations was pretty parallel to the mindset of South Africa. In terms of South Africans responded to the native people, and Australia, how they responded to the native people as well, particularly like the Aboriginal people.
Yeah, the Aboriginal community.
Right. Peter was there. Peter saw what was going on. He was not enchanted about that. He wasn't excited about his country doing that. So when we went through our rounds, and I said to Peter, I said, do you believe in human rights? And he laughed and he said, of course I believe in human rights. And he went to explain to me that his mom and dad were Salvation Army workers. Okay. All of his life. So I said to him, well, would you like to wear a button? And he's reaching for mine. I smacked him on his hand, told him, whoa, slow your roll. I'll get you. Because I had been wearing my button all through the races. All my races, you see the button on me. But Peter proved himself at that particular time as a human being.
Right.
And he was just a phenomenal individual to say, I'm willing to lend support and I'm willing to let the world know, here I am as a young white individual that will stand with you. Wow. Now, mind you, because Peter Norman put a button on his chest, he went on the victory stand, he didn't disrespect the Australian flag, he didn't disrespect the American flag. He stood at attention. I don't think that we disrespected the American flag because we pretty much stood at attention. We just raised our fists.
Right.
But the bottom line is, when we got home, America was upset with us, and the Australian people and government was upset with Peter. But here in America, we had an opportunity for them to whip up on Tommy Smith and John Carlos get arrested. Then they go whip up on John Carlos, Tommy Smith get arrested. But in Australia, they whipped up on Peter Norman 24/7, 365. Wow. And he didn't get arrested. They didn't have no shelter for him or cover for him. So you always have to have respect for an individual like that. And then you sit back, you look at Peter Norman, and you try and realize, well, who is Peter Norman parallel to in history? Well, I mentioned that he's parallel to earlier when I called the names out, and that individual is John Brown. John Brown did good things for humanity. Peter Norman did some good things for humanity, but they try and whitewash John Brown, and they try and whitewash Peter Norman to take them out of history, to let them disguise the truth, I might say, relative an individual who can go beyond being black, white, red, whatever, yellow. He goes to humanity. He goes to being a human being. Right. They don't want that to be shown. So Peter Norman never fudged. He never backed up. He never denounced who we were, what we stood for. He came and supported us at San Jose State when they unveiled the statues. But then we were supposed to get together after a number of years. I'm sitting in my house and I'm telling my wife, well, see my buddy soon. And then I get a phone call from his nephew and told me, say, John, Peter is gone. And I'm like, what do you mean gone? Gone where? And then he said he's dead. And from my perspective, I think they broke his heart.
Well, I'm going to say two things. I mean, obviously, and I love the thing that you referred to. They were really good people. And unfortunately, we live in a society right now, even today, 2023, where nobody wants to talk about what's really going on, right? Nobody wants to acknowledge what's happening. And so the fact that, and I hate to say this, when you break somebody's heart, and I'm going to be real with you, Dr. Carlos, if you break their heart, you break their spirit, you break their soul, you break who they are. And at the end of the day, they'll give up because they don't have anything else to fight for.
Well, that's not really the way I see it.
Okay.
I see it like this. You can be depressed, but you don't give up. Okay? Your heart is broken merely because you're in a situation where you understand you can read the writing on the board and everyone else can read the writing on the board, but they choose to look down opposed to looking at the board. Understand? They want you to run from who you are. The real soldiers of the Creator, they know that they're protected. I didn't think about running. It's not about the flesh. I mean, they threatened my life. They threatened everyone's life. They spoke up in any sense of the word about making the adjustments to make this a better society for all people.
Right.
They denounced them. They assassinated them. They character assassination. They did everything they can. Economic depression. They did everything they can to try and diffuse these individuals of doing it. But yet still, when you sit back and you think about you out there doing what you know is right, the most depressing thing that you have to deal with in your mind and your heart is where's everyone else? Why isn't anyone standing here with me? How come I don't have the support? Why don't they raise their voices? What's that noise in back of me? Because you done walked out in the plank. You done put yourself out on the line. And then you hear this, and then you say, wow, it look like the people that I'm really fighting for, they in the back of me sawing the board off.
Right,
right. You realize that I'm out there by myself. But yet still, I don't mind the fact that I'm out there by myself, but I'm just so disheartened.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard because those that should be there lending support, they're running or standing on the side, waiting for them to get a gift from the work that you do. This is a job we all need to roll up our sleeves and get together as one to make a better society for all people.
Well, and Dr. Carlos, that goes back to self-interest, right? We get into the place where we don't want to put ourselves on the line because even though you're doing it, we'll applaud, but we're really not supporting what you're doing because we don't want to put anything that we have, anything that could mess up our life, mess up our journey at risk because it's not that important to us at that time. And, you know, that to me really speaks a lot to what we deal with here not just in the United States, but in the world. So I'm gonna shift gears. I got one more thing I want to talk to you about. First, obviously, you know, we're in a time right now where there's so much confusion, so much chaos, and our children, right? We got kids right now who we don't really know where their mind is, the technology, the artificial intelligence. Like there's so many things going on, which is kind of changed. So what type of insight, what type of information, what type of ideas do you feel like you can talk about when it comes to our kids right now?
Well, the kids are affected by the same thing society is affected by, and that's lack of love. You know, our kids don't have the love that they had back in the 30s and 40s. You know, our parents love their kids. They could go outside and say, you be here in the house before the sun go down. Yes, mommy, yes, daddy. And they go out and have a good time. They get home. Now it's to the point where you can't send your kid outside because you don't know whether they would ever come back home based on the fact that people outside shoot pistols all over the place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you sit back and you say to yourself, say, you know, where are we as a society? What visuals are we giving to kids in society? I mean, you look at your heroes, and most of our heroes today are athletes. It is not, you know, Daniel Boone ain't out there no more. It's LeBron James out there. You know, it's Mike Tyson's out there. These individuals are our heroes. When you say these individuals are the ones that I have a visual on, I'm looking to see under certain circumstances how they respond, how they act to it. And then when they don't see them doing the appropriate things, it's not about the fact that I'm not doing something because I might not make the money I want to make. Well, we got multi-millionaires, we got young billionaires out there, and they still have that fear factor. Sure. I have fear to do what I think is right. I'm not going to call any names. I think if society knows who steps up and who doesn't, you know, that's the biggest thing, to teach kids about love of self. Teach them about respect. Teach them about morals. You understand? Teach them about responsibility. These things are lacking Teach them the value of education. It ain't about you going there and you don't like the teacher. It's not about whether you like the teacher. It's about whether this medicine is good for you. Castor is not the best tasting medicine, but yet and still, I have to take it if I want to be healthy to move forward. You have to have education to move forward. You can't let no one put a trap in because a teacher said this to you or a teacher said that to you. Get your education and deal with that teacher on another day. You understand? Don't run from what's good for you.
Wow. Wow. Man, that what you just said right there is powerful. Powerful. And it's interesting that you say we're in a time right now where our moral compass is shaken, right? We don't really know what's really good. We don't know. We're confused. And then here's the other thing. We're so offended by anything. Like you can't say anything to anybody, or you could be getting sued, or there could be something of going south for you.
They could be carrying you to Boot Hill.
Oh yeah, there's no question.
Get offended. I mean, we're so fragile now. If an individual on the freeway just having to try and get out of the way of someone and just accidentally block someone else off, you subject to lose your life as a result of that. I mean, it's to the point where you sit back and say, well, when I was a kid, I heard about homicide, but I heard about men killing somebody in the stick up, this, that, and the other. In today's time, you hear more about men pulling women and shooting women, killing women, just blowing them up and then killing their kids and that kind of thing. Yeah. So it leads to the fact that the human race at this point is totally out of control.
Ooh.
It's totally out of control. And even to the government, when you sit back, you look at the legislation, the government, what's going on with the government right now, they're out of control.
Right. Well, and I think that, first and foremost, I appreciate everything that you're saying, because it's just real talk. And I love that you have, like we said before, you have the courage to speak real things that we're observing. And I'm sure everybody that's listening to this is seeing the exact same thing, which is what's interesting. And that's why I have so much love for you, because I know that you're not afraid. So I want to say two things that keep popping into my mind. I mean, right now we really need to figure out, how do we get better? And, I want to get it from your perspective. What do you think we need to be doing right now to try to shift the culture of our society? What you got for me? What you got?
Well, when you sit back and say shift, focus our society, we have governments and we have laws, and we have to, as the grassroots people of society, we have to be the ones to make the government responsible for the things that they do. You understand? The problems that we have is a matter of us. Every problem we have is just like math. Everything that we do in life is based around mathematics. Okay. So, like saying, we have an equation in front of us, man. The bottom line is, as a group of individuals, whether you city government or state government or federal government, it doesn't matter. As a group, we need to sit down, roll up our sleeves, put all our bias and prejudices on the side, and say, man, we have to solve this equation. You understand? Right. It's not a heavy thing. It's something very serious. This is, man, what do you do when it's a fire? Do you sit there and try and vacillate in your mind, well, how do I put out the fire? You know what to do to put the fire out.
You got to get out of there.
That's right. You got to get out of there, and then you got to find some water, and you got to find help to bring that water to the fire. But yet still, we have a tendency to sit back and vacillate back and forth, spinning our wheel like we doing something, but we ain't really doing nothing. And when you sit back and say, by doing nothing, you turn around and look behind you, you don't realize the chaos and the mayhem that was out there as a lack of doing nothing. You don't realize, because you're looking forward, you're looking ahead. You ain't looking back at all the destruction and damage that you did as that human tornado.
Right. Well, and I think that goes back to, we don't like to be held accountable when we make mistakes, because nobody likes to look in the mirror. So two things I want to say as we get ready to wrap up our conversation and our time together. A lot of people keep asking me to get out of Idaho, and somebody told me I need to move to, I'm from Detroit. I was thinking about moving to Atlanta, but what I know is you're good friends with one of my friends, Chris Webber. Chris Webber. Yeah. And so my thought is what are your thoughts about me getting out of Idaho and coming out to Atlanta?
Well, let me just say this, man. First and foremost, don't let nobody run you from where you are. Okay? If you decide that you want to go somewhere to live, then you say, all right, baby, let's check this out. What you think? But you don't let nobody in that environment where you are impress upon your mind that we don't like you and you need to leave.
Right.
No, if you don't like me, then you have a problem. Maybe you leave. You understand? I mean, to pick up and move, what happens if you move to Atlanta and then the same situation here in Atlanta? You know, where they tell you we like who you are and what you're doing. You understand? It doesn't mean that you have to be with a flock of people to do what's right. You can be by yourself. You don't have to run out to the club. You don't have to run into all the meetings to step up before the media and say the correct things to advance society.
Sure.
Understand? There's more people out there that will respect you.
Sure.
When you demand that respect. I don't care about whether you like me. Telling people I don't care about you liking me, but I'm gonna see that you give the respect that I'm due.
Yes.
And most people are not gonna particularly like you on whichever side of the fence. It's because they can't be you.
Ooh.
They see characters in you that they would like to have within themselves, and they don't have it, so they're jealous and envious of you. Not that they don't like you. I'm just jealous and envious of you, man, because everything you got is what I want.
Man, well, I'm gonna say this, and first and foremost, you know, even in this interview, what you just gave me resonated with me. And first, I appreciate you just keeping it 100, which is how we've always communicated, right? We've always kept it 100. And so, first, I just appreciate you taking the time for us to connect. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate the insight. And not only that, I hope that people who get a chance to watch the Unstoppable interview and understand what we're doing, that they realize like the stuff that you've done, you sacrificed a ton to make everything that you've done happen. And so I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you.
Let me just say this, Derrick. You know, my sacrifice is minute. When you sit back and you think about the forerunners, think about Harriet Tubman, think about what she sacrificed. Think about what Frederick Douglass sacrificed, or John Brown sacrificed. You understand? Think about all the sharecroppers in Arkansas, that 3,000 that lost their lives. Think about what they sacrificed.
Right.
You understand? Merely because I don't want to go out and be Sir Lancelot. I don't want to be the hero. But I have to do what I need to do in order for the legacy to carry on to my kids, where they'll pick it up and say, I am somebody. I have a right. I want a better education. I earned an opportunity to get this raised on the job. You know, a lot of times, man, we had the biggest brain, helped the company the most. But when it came to you being the supervisor, it came to you being the CEO, just merely the color of your skin was the barrier to keep you from being successful in life. Right. And these are the ills of society that we need to stop. And individuals